Hello and welcome to this week's Gems of War Guild Event Planner. I am Guardian Namek, Guild Leader of Loot and Plunder. This week's focus is the lore event, and we are using elves. Not just Zhul'Kari elves, but we are using elves in general. And after running some numbers, here are the units you want to use. So I have not put in Silverglade or most of the other large elf settlements into my spreadsheet, so we'll be mostly covering Zhul'Kari units this week, as it is Zhul'Kari week. But this is the team I plan on using. I'll be using the Arachnian Watcher, the tome that blows up the board, the Widow Queen, and the Deep Huntsman. The reason I'm going to be using the Arachnian Watcher, even though it has a mana conflict, is for a very simple reason. I'm using the Widow Queen, who sacrifices an ally to deal AoE damage, so the Watcher is going to be removed very quickly. And so the idea is that I'll sacrifice him and then have a new minion, and he seems to have a good amount of health. Actually, I could probably use the Arachnatar, because look, it has even more health. Pretty much, my goal is I should just put whatever has the most health up front, and then it'll be sacked, and whatever that is there will be continually sacked. I also have it set up with the class that there's a few things, like the summon giant spider when I take damage, and a few other things that can summon something, which helps with sacrificing if need be. The Widow Queen is just nice damage, sack a unit, do a lot of AoE damage, spawn a new one, and rinse and repeat. The Deep Huntsman is going to be akin to the Obsidian Libram, where it explodes the board most likely, and in this case, curses and webs the first enemy. And the nice thing is that being able to explode green or purple gems at this magnitude means it actually gets to explode most of that number of gems. Because a lot of times it's like, explode 26 purple gems. You're probably only going to get about 12. Because there's only going to be about 12 on the field. But if it's purple and green, you're probably getting around 20. Now there's still going to be some overlap. But it is the case of like, hey, this actually might be kinda nice. If you're looking for some options, here's some other good troops to use, and a team as well. If you don't want to try and make a team, the Deep Elf team from Elderzor will work wonderfully this week, as they're all pretty decent. So the Rogue, not so great, but again, if you just don't want to have to think about it, just go, yep. You know, get your team together. The Delve team for the week also does quite well. Now, generally, if we're just looking over stats, the Widow Queen is going to be one of the best damage for the week. The Deep Magnus is also some good damage. Won't be as much damage as the Queen, but he gets to curse and web them all, which is very annoying because basically no spells for you. You only get to do skull damage. So quite effective there as well, and some good damage. The Blood Elf from Golvania that I believe we got as a glory character a few weeks ago, or maybe a few months ago at this point. It's been a while. Is also pretty good because they get a steal life and then web them, which is a nice little bonus. But the steal life is actually pretty good because it's both the true damage and a heal to yourself, so it's quite nice in that regard. And some more good on the damage side is going to be the Shadow Blade, as they get to do true damage to a random enemy, and if you get lucky, you get your mana back. Now this gets less useful as there's less mana or less purple gems on the field, but if you get lucky, it's not too bad of a unit. And the true damage ain't bad either for the mana cost. Also, on the same mana cost level of like, hey, that's pretty cheap. The Spider Knight actually does some decent damage. I know, it's basically a fancy club, but with the web, you get to shut down their magic stuff and deal some damage for a fairly low mana cost. So he is surprisingly useful. Another good unit for damage this week is going to be Matron Villain, as they get to do some damage and then have a chance to just good old-fashioned kill the target, boosted by Cursed and Webbed enemies, which her third trait allows her to curse and web a random enemy when matching 4 or more gems. So you'll want to create her on the field, but otherwise, you'll pretty much consistently have enemies cursed and webbed, which it gives that a really good chance to just kill an enemy outright. Which, while early on, due to the high mana cost, not going to be too useful. But later on, when you're fighting much tougher enemies, that's going to be a good amount of damage. And also part of the Eldrazi Delve team. So, once again, if you don't want to have to think about a team this week, just doing the Delve team will do you pretty well. Now, if we're looking for some mana, which is always important, some of the good units to be using are going to be things like the Deep Huntsman, as I already talked about earlier, the Sapphire Knight, and any other knights that may appear, or I should say Changer Knights, where they get to convert a color to another color and then give all allies armor. Just nice and simple, gives a good bit of mana, gives a good bit of armor. Nothing too fancy, just nice and solid. And then Tiri is also pretty decent. She has a very low mana cost. And while she says she destroys 28 gems of a chosen color, it'll once again most likely be closer to 12, as just because she can destroy up to 28 doesn't mean there's going to be 28 on the field. And so there's most likely going to be a much smaller number of gems destroyed, but her mana cost is still fairly low, so even if it's just 12, that's not too bad of a mana generation. And then we also have Lady Inariel, as she gets to do create 8 blue and green gems, and all allies gain some life. Nice and simple. You get to make a mix of mana, and then also heal everyone. So they are also useful for their mana generation, but that is about it. I almost forgot the Arachnean Watcher as well, as they are a good tank, even if you don't plan on sacrificing them, as they have holy armor for some reason, giving them good resistance to skulls. And then the life gain is actually quite good, as it's roughly going to be about 50 life every time you cast it. And he gives all other allies a quarter of their mana, which works really well for charging up and tanking. Now, if you don't plan on just sacrificing him, I would suggest probably only using him near the later ends of the guild event, where it becomes difficult for you without a tank, as an Obsidian Libram will do quite well with exploding the board for mana, and they share mana colors. But if you're using a different explode weapon, Arachnean Watcher might not be a bad choice either then. And that shall be it, as I do not have the elves of any of the other kingdoms written down to my spreadsheets. I do rely upon my spreadsheets for the information that I am providing today. I will say, most of the elves seem to be quite good, or at least above average, with only a handful being notably bad. So, as per usual, if all else fails, and you just throw together a random team, you'll probably be fine. I hope this info was helpful for both starting and veteran players of Gems of War. If it was helpful to you, give that subscribe button a click, as I plan on doing these every Monday, both to help my guild and for fun. Until next week, have fun plundering.